Welcome back then folks to Special Projects Pack number 16, day 2 on the first build of the 2 today. Of course, this one is, for those who don't recognise the car, a vehicle which many old school Forza fans will recognise from back in Forza 2. Years ago at this point I reviewed this in Forza 2. It's the Sparco Evo VIII, and it's a pretty hefty machine. Of course, we've done a couple of Evo builds in rally form, in aftermarket tuner form, even last time around I'm pretty sure I did the FQ400, also of course based on the Evo VIII platform. For this one though, there are a couple of differences. As you can see, it's a 450-ish horsepower car, which is pretty hefty, and it only weighs 1,315 kilos. For those who are curious, it's pretty obvious, but yes, we are using Forza 2 as the reference. If anyone has more information on what this car's real-life reference point is, I would love to hear it, because when you Google this thing online, at least from what I could see, you only really find reference to it in Forza 2. You don't really see real-world versions of the car, so I don't know if it's like maybe a fictional version for the game. I would imagine it was probably some kind of show car, like a SEMA car or something like that, as these often are. So if that is the case, then I'd love to hear more about it, but for now we're just working on the Forza 2 principles in terms of, horsepower and the kind of handling we're going for and the weight, etc. So as far as the actual parts, we've got the Stage 1 weight. I've gone for sports brake pads. For the tyres, it has hards anyway, so I've left those on there. As far as the club sports section, I've gone for the sports clutch and flywheel. The power restrictor you don't actually need for this one. And then we've got the ballast fitted as well for if you need it. As far as the semi-racing stuff, we've got the fully customised ECU, the semi-racing exhaust silencer. As far as the turbo, I've gone for the mid-range, so the medium RPM, the height adjustable suspension, fully customised diff, the manual box, so it's not all the way into, fully sequential territory. As far as the racing stuff, we've got the polished ports, the balance tuning, the racing intercooler, filter, manifold. I've gone for racing discs, which is a bit of overkill really. You could probably just go for sports ones, so I'll leave that down to you. As far as the rest of the stuff here, of course, we've got our torque vectoring center diff for the extreme stuff, the steering angle adapter as well for extra turn-in, and the titanium rods and pistons. So it's not crazy in terms of what you need to fit, and obviously the Evo VIII itself isn't crazy expensive either. Of course, there weren't a huge amount of people who have done a livery like this, so I was really happy to see that this one, and another one later on in the week, of course, for the Dulux Supra, also a Forza 2 reference, people had done it, which was great to see. It's always heartening to see some old school Forza love in the GT community, and as far as the build itself goes, it's not crazy on points either. 578 is pretty modest for a car with 450 horses and 1,300 kilos. I mean, that's beyond an FQ400. But again, to compare it to the FQ400 build, I wanted it to have a different handling signature as well. So it didn't just feel like another version of an FQ400. And even if you compare them back to back, they don't feel the same, which of course is the point. You want it to be like that. Now, as far as the suspension, we've got 110mm, which sounds fairly high, but it really isn't because the lowest is 100 anyway. For the anti-roll, of course, you can't touch that with height adjustable suspension. 25 and 45 for the dampers, 2.05 for the springs. Slight difference in camber front and rear, 1 on the front, 0.8 on the back. The toe, of course, is set as it already is. As far as the diff, nothing too crazy there, as with yesterday's build. 10, 20 and 10, then 10, 30 and 20. I've opted for, and here's one of the key differences, a 40-60 split. The reason for that is so that you can actually kick the tail out a little bit more, and it has a little bit looser steering than the FQ400. And that, of course, is to reference not only the Sparco Evo again in Forza 2, which was a bit more like that, a little looser and certainly very quick around the track, but also, like I said, to set it apart more from not being just like another FQ400. So I wanted it to feel genuinely different. As far as the manual setup, I've gone for 270 kilometers an hour for that one. As far as the ballast, 55 kilos. Like I said, that is referencing Forza 2, so that is the weight that it was in the game. I haven't adjusted the ballast on that because it's already the same as it was in Forza 2. As far as the ECU, that's unadjusted. For downforce, I mean, it's up to you. It depends on the point level you want to be going for. I've got it the highest front and rear for grip, and then for the other stuff over here, it's all fitted as is. So, like I said, for a car which is technically kind of like an FQ450, if you will, it's sitting pretty reasonable. For sports hard tyres, 450 horses, 1,300 kilos, that's a pretty strong combination for an Evo. So to be well under 600 points, not far off 575 in fact, and you could easily get this down to 575 with downforce adjustments. That's not bad, could be quite a useful car. On the point of usefulness though, of course all that remains is to jump out to the track, and then I can show you what it can do in practice. Now I mentioned of course that this one is a little bit slidier than the FQ400, and a little bit slidier than you'd expect any Evo 8 to be, but that is by design. I wanted it to have that kind of different handling signature and profile. If though you find it to have too much turn-in or be too slippery for your liking, well of course that's the beauty of the center diff. You can change that, just put it up to like 50-50 or whatever. As far as the lap time goes, and this is a pretty strong point of reference, this is quicker around Suzuka than my build from a previous pack for the Mines Evo VI, of course a Gran Turismo legend in its own right, also with, if I recall correctly, about 450 horses. So to be quicker than that, even by a small amount, it shows just how quick this thing is. Now incidentally, some of you might have noticed I have made some visual changes compared to if you download this player's livery. They had the rear bumper kit and the side skirts fitted, as well as the racing tow hitch as well. I've removed all of those. So I've left the front bumper as is, left the spoiler as is and everything else, but I didn't think it looked quite right with those other things, because if you look at it again in Forza 2, you can see the front end is changed, but the side skirts and the back end, not so much. But of course you can change it without altering the livery, as I have here. So I'll leave it up to you on those smaller details of like the brakes and the aero and that kind of stuff. And of course, stick around for the rest of pack number 16 during this week. Check out the ones which we've already done, and until next time, I'll see you then. But for now, thanks for watching.